Hello and welcome to another episode of the Aloha Gamester Show. I'm your host Nathan, and today we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch reaching its 5-year anniversary. I'm also going to be going over each individual console that I own, as well as some Nintendo Switch memories, and providing for you my top 10 Nintendo Switch games. I realize that everybody has their own unique list of their favorite games, so please feel free to comment down below your own personal list, and with that being said, let's jump right into it. 6 months or so before Nintendo started really announcing that their plans were to release a new console, I started hearing rumors that that was happening. So my manager came up to me, knowing that I was a gamer, and said, "Hey Nate, did you know that Nintendo's actually talking about releasing a new hybrid console?" I said, what does that mean? And he says, well, basically, you have the option with this new Nintendo to play it on the television, and when you want to leave, you can literally take the console with you and play it on the go. And I thought, what a revolutionary concept. Like, why hasn't anybody thought of that before? Thank God for Nintendo. So my interest was piqued from day one of hearing about it, and I never put in a pre-order. Honestly, I didn't expect to have the money by the time it came due, so I just took my chances and waited to see how things would pan out. I picked up the Nintendo Switch Generation 1, all black. They have the red and blue Joy-Con model as well, but I liked the all black. And I also picked up Breath of the Wild. The second model that we picked up was a pink Nintendo Switch Lite for my fiance Vivian, and that's right here. She got a special case for it on Amazon, and we ended up buying it from Walmart because of the fact that everywhere else was sold out, and I think Walmart realized that as well, because they were charging $25 more for the pink model than the other models. I didn't really mind paying the extra $25. I think it was worth it. So we picked that up, and I also picked up Animal Crossing New Horizons for her. After that came out, we started hearing rumors about a Switch Pro, which ultimately manifested into the Switch OLED. And I remember being over at GameStop at the Pearl Ridge Mall, and I was picking up my pre-order of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. I remember the representative at the front of the line telling the customer that they had the option to pre-order the Nintendo Switch OLED, and I kept telling myself, don't forget, as soon as you get to the front of the line, put that pre-order in. And, well, when I got Skyward Sword in my hands, as well as that pre-order poster, bonus poster, I forgot, and I walked right out the door. And I didn't realize that I forgot for like 2 weeks. And then it was like another month before I even got around to calling GameStop and seeing if I could still put in a pre-order. By the time I got a hold of them, they told me that the pre-order window was closed, and so I had to leave it up to chance on whether or not I would be getting an OLED. Now, fast forward to, I believe it was October 2021 that the OLED released. I was fortunately working in Kahala, and I was in between job sites. And so I ran my ass over 2 hours before GameStop opened and waited in line. And I remember pulling up to the mall, and my heart was racing. And I got in my parking stall, locked my doors, and I booked it to go inside. And I remember, we had to wear masks at this point in time, and my freaking mask, the string snapped. And so I'm like flustered. I'm like, damn it, trying to go through my car and find another mask real quick. I ran my ass straight to GameStop, and I remember coming up on a pretty big line, and I put my hands up in the air like I was finishing a marathon. And I was like, woo, running past everybody. I got to the back of the line, and the people in front of me I wanted to make some small talk with, so I said, hey, I heard passing the front of the line that they got 20 models in stock, so we should be good. And they said, what are you talking about? What are you trying to buy? And I said, the Nintendo Switch OLED. What are you trying to buy? And they said, oh, we're here for the Pokemon release. There's a new GameStop exclusive, and they're doing some kind of bonus if you buy something Pokemon in the store. So apparently they're doing a Pokemon release as well today, promotional card, so this could be a mix of people, but hey, either way, hopefully we'll have enough consoles by the time it gets to me. Doesn't look like it's too bad. So Richard's going down the line. He's handing everybody a ticket, basically accounting for all the Switch consoles they have in stock. This is just to set the expectation for those in the back of the line that they wouldn't be getting one. Now, at the same time, Metroid Dread was releasing, and it was in tandem with the Nintendo Switch OLED, and I think that's partially why they did these white Joy-Cons on the side here, is because the white matches the enemy that stalks you throughout Metroid Dread. And so as soon as Richard got to me, he hands me a ticket. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Oh my god, I'm getting my own console. Good, we're locked in. So it was just a waiting game at that point. So I get inside, and unfortunately, all the collector's editions of Metroid Dread were for pre-orders only. They only had enough to satisfy the pre-orders. So I had to settle for a standard edition of the game. All right, let's take a look. Got the amiibo. They had a collector's edition, but it was already spoken for, so I couldn't get it. I got Metroid Dread. I got the promo card because I bought something Pokemon. They also gave me the jumbo binder, promotional binder for the jumbo cards. And then Score Bunny is what I bought for Vivian, because you have to buy one thing Pokemon in order to get it and get the promotional stuff. And then, yeah, baby, the Switch OLED right here in the flesh. White version, can't wait. And once I finished work, I was on my way home going down the highway, coming up on an exit that would lead me to my local GameStop closer to where I lived. And so I decided, why not give them a call? I'd phone them up and see if they had a collector's edition in stock. I called the GameStop and I asked, do you guys have any collector's editions left of Metroid Dread? They said, we have one. And I said, I'll be right there. And they're like, well, drive safe. Click. Took the first exit off, whipped around, got straight over to the CAM Shopping Center GameStop, and did the same thing. Ran my ass inside, frantically slapped my standard edition of Metroid on the counter. I'd like to do a refund, and I want to get that collector's edition right there behind you. And so, fortunately, I was one of the lucky ones who got a collector's edition of Metroid Dread. And I love this. I love the texture of the box. It comes with a really great art book inside, some postcard size art cards for Metroid, and a steel book for the game. Now, to be honest, this is one of my first Metroid games I ever played. The only other Metroid games that I played besides Dread was Metroid on the NES and Super Metroid on the SNES, and that was actually the emulated versions that were on the Nintendo Switch. So I'm very new to the Metroid series, and I fell in love. It's an incredibly difficult and nerve-wracking game, but I loved it. And so with that being said, I've now locked in my Nintendo Switch Generation 1, my Nintendo Switch OLED, and my fiance has her pink Lite. The next Nintendo Switch console that I purchased was the Nintendo Switch Lite Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Edition. So I was actually the first one to pick up a Nintendo Switch Lite Diamond and Pearl Edition at that GameStop location. I was pretty happy about it. I never planned on opening it, but curiosity got the best of me. I opened it, just turned it on to see if it worked, and then turned it back off, repackaged it, and I've kept it boxed ever since. I don't really have any need to be playing it, being that I have these other two consoles right here. My fiance's got the pink one, so we're good. But anyways, I love it. And after that, I decided I want to collect Nintendo Switch consoles. So we'll keep an eye out for any other releases that they do in the future, because yeah, I'm gonna be on a mission now to get boxed Nintendo Switches from here on out. So that's a little bit of my Nintendo Switch memories. Let's jump into my top 10 list of games. First off, we're going to be starting in reverse order. So starting with number 10, I have Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley was a game that I initially picked up digitally, and what intrigued me about Stardew Valley is it resembled Harvest Moon to me, like a Harvest Moon style game, farming simulator, and I love the cartoony aspect of it. I played Harvest Moon on the Game Boy Color, and I fell in love with that game because you're farming, you're growing your own crops, you're in charge of farming the land, taking care of the animals, selling your crops, and interacting with the townsfolk. And Stardew Valley was basically taking that concept to the next level. So I picked it up digitally initially. I do have plans on picking up the collector's edition. It looks fantastic, and I think it's still going for roughly like between $60 and $100 online. So it's still relatively affordable, but I love the art style of this game. It's so cartoony and wonderful. The music is relaxing, and it's a very immersive game. When it comes to farming, you're not just farming. There's seasons you got to pay attention to. You got to sell your crops. You got to interact with town folks. You can have your own family. You can upgrade your house. You can explore caves, explore the maps. There's all sorts of different areas that are kind of locked away until you get to the right level. Also, I look forward to that new game coming out. I think it's called like Haunted Chocolatier. It looks just as good. So number 10 is Stardew Valley. If you haven't picked it up and you have any interest in farming simulator games that are cartoony, highly recommend it. Now, number 9 on my list is this game right here called Moonlighter. Moonlighter is one of those games that I picked up randomly on a Friday trip to GameStop, and I realized not only does the music pull me in, because it reminds me, it's so similar to this game called Graveyard Keeper. If you're a fan of Graveyard Keeper's music, you would love this game because it's almost identical. And I also saw that you manage a store. You can upgrade your store. I believe the store is handed to you by your grandfather or your uncle, something like that. And so you are harvesting monster parts that you get by dungeon crawling through different dungeons within the town. You can sell your monster parts in your store, which then give you money to upgrade your tools, your weapons, your armor, and also upgrade your town. And as you upgrade your town, it unlocks different vendors, whether those are competing vendors selling the same thing that you do, vendors that sell weapons and armor, potions, etc., and so forth. Anyways, number 9 on the list, Moonlighter. If you're a fan of Graveyard Keeper, you're a fan of dungeon crawlers, you're a fan of Stardew Valley / Harvest Moon, this is a definite recommendation from me. Following up from Moonlighter, we have the number 8 on the list, which is Super Mario Odyssey. Now, funny story about Super Mario Odyssey. I initially picked it up on release day, and I didn't like it. I don't know what it was, but something didn't click with me in the game. So I played about 15 minutes of it, took it back to GameStop, and fortunately, GameStop had a policy where if you bought a new release title and you returned it within a week, opened or not, you would get a full refund. So I brought it back, got a refund, and I actually traded it in to pick up 3 Switch games used. I don't know what the other 2 were, but one of them was Assassin's Creed 3, and that was a huge mistake. Great game, doesn't look good or play well on the Switch. But anyways, time passes, and I started seeing reviews on Super Mario Odyssey. I started watching playthroughs, and I also started getting the Mario bug. It was, nostalgia was kicking in, and I was craving something that took me back to Super Mario 64 days. And from what I was hearing, Super Mario Odyssey was the closest thing to that. So I went out back to GameStop and paid for Super Mario Odyssey for a second time, full price, and came home. And this time I had the determination to play it through. And now I've probably played dang near the entire game, and I love it. I'm really glad I gave it a second chance. I love how Mario can take off Cappy or whatever and huck it over at basically anything in the game, and you can change into a Mario version of those objects or characters. And I love the map. I love the colors. The graphics for Super Mario Odyssey is probably one of the best games graphically for the Nintendo Switch. And the music, the soundtrack is fantastic. It honestly brings me back to a younger me, and it's the closest thing, like I said, to Mario 64 that I've played to date. If you have not yet played Mario Odyssey, I would highly recommend giving it a shot. Number 8 on the list for me. Next up is number 7. Number 7 is Grandia, the HD Collection, and this is obviously the physical edition of the game I bought from Limited Run Games. I actually bought it secondhand from a person on Mercari, but it is the Limited Run Games release of Grandia HD Collection. Grandia is a game that I played growing up on the PlayStation 1, and I loved it because it takes place in a small town with a bunch of kids who are craving adventure in their life. They're playing around, and next thing you know, they find themselves traveling the world, fighting monsters, meeting new people on their own grand adventure, which they had been seeking the entire beginning of the game. And it reminds me of when I was a kid and wishing for the same exact thing, wondering when is my grand adventure going to begin. And now I look back on times like that and I realize through the ups and downs that my life has been a very serious adventure in and of itself. So I can relate to this game on a personal level. I have nostalgic ties to it. And not only that, but Justin and Sue and I can't even remember the other character's name, but fantastic characters. It's a great game. Now keep in mind it is an HD remaster, but it still is an older game. If you have any interest in nostalgia gaming, if you like JRPGs, if you like everything that I've talked about so far, you will definitely love Grandia. It comes with Grandia 1 and Grandia 2. I've never played Grandia 2, but Grandia 1 is a fantastic game. Another thing I really like about this physical edition is Limited Run Games usually includes a manual with their games, and they included one with Grandia. Another thing that I got from the reseller was a trading card for the Grandia HD collection. So I put it in a top loader and keeping it safe and sound. Now, would I recommend you go out and spend $150 to $200 for a physical edition of this game if you have not played it yet? No. But you can get it still very reasonably priced on the Nintendo Switch eShop. So if you have any interest, highly recommend it. This is number 7. Next up, we got number 6, Dying Light, the Platinum Edition for the Nintendo Switch. I'm a guy who loves survival games and I love zombie games, so Dying Light meshes those two perfectly. And it's a game where basically you are an undercover government agent who is airdropped on an island, and the island has suffered a zombie apocalypse, and the once politician turned now into a warlord is ruling the island with an iron fist, and you're tasked with infiltrating a community of survivors and essentially learning more about this warlord. There is a treatment for the zombie bite called atrazine in the game, and what atrazine does is slow the effects of the zombie virus almost to a halt as long as you continue to take atrazine. And you can craft in the game, you can craft your own weapons. Keep in mind that although you can make guns in this game of all shapes and sizes, any loud noises draws zombies in. You need to clear safe houses, so when nightfall comes, you have a place to hide out, to escape, to seek refuge from more difficult zombies. You use parkour to scale buildings, to slide over cars, to beat the crap out of zombies. One of my favorite things to do is climb radio towers, and then you get this expansive view of just how immersive and awesome this map is. And from there, you can zip line down, parachute off. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So again, if you like zombie games, you like survival games, Dying Light, the Platinum Edition, is a huge recommendation. Also, if you get it now, it comes with this cardboard outer casing, which has extra bonus physical content inside. So keep an eye out for Dying Light Platinum Edition. Next up, we have number 5, which is Xenoblade Chronicles Torna, the Golden Country. And keep in mind, you have to own the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. You have to have a save file on your Switch in order to be able to play Torna. But the reason why I chose Torna over the other Xenoblade games is because although Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was my second game I ever purchased for the Nintendo Switch, something about it didn't click with me, and it was the combat. I didn't like having to just press a button at the right time in order to fight. You know, it's not like a hack and slash style game. It's all about button pressing and timing correctly. So I didn't like that at first, but as time passed, you know, I listened to a few reviews. I saw how popular the Xenoblade series was and also how valuable they were. I picked up Xenoblade Chronicles the Definitive Edition, and I saw while I was there that Torna was available for $30 used at GameStop, and this game is going for dang near $80+ these days. So I picked it up. I decided to sink some time in and try to understand how the combat works. And once I did, I realized that I love this game. I love how massive the world is. I love the Xeno lore, especially Xenoblade. I like how it takes place on the back of these giants, and the story is very impressive. I think there's hundreds of hours worth of content in it, and I think I'm only about 10 hours in, and I already know it's one of my top games, obviously, as it's included in my list. But keep in mind, if you are a fan of the Xenoblade series, you need to own the Definitive Edition before you can actually play Torna the Golden Country. So high recommendation, just make sure you have the right game in order to play it. Next on my list is number 4, and that is Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Now, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is a game that I owned on the Game Boy Color, but that game just confused the crap out of me, and I didn't get very far in it. But now when I saw that they've did a top-down remake of the game with updated graphics, soundtrack, etc., I gave it another chance. And I love the fact that it looks like they're like claymation art figures that you're playing as the characters. It's a Zelda game, but honestly, it's a pretty straightforward game. There's times where you can get a little lost and you're like, where do I go next? All I can say is talk to everybody. That's basically how you figure out where you're going to go next. The music is fantastic. I love the sound of Marin's voice when she's surrounded by the animals and she's singing to them. I love the story in the game. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but the ending of the game is fantastic. It's a very heartfelt ending, and also, like I said, it's part of the Zelda series, so if you're somebody who wants to play all the games, well, you're going to have to get to this game eventually. Now, I liked this game so much that I actually requested my fiance pick me up the limited edition from Europe. This is the PAL edition. And I wanted it for collectible purposes. I haven't opened it, and what comes with it is a steelbook, which resembles a Game Boy. It comes with an art book as well, and it comes with a physical copy of the game. I don't ever plan on opening this, but very grateful to have it. It is part of my Zelda collection. I have played through the actual game here, as you can tell, and I would recommend it as number 4 on my list. So, next up we have number 3, which is Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age, the Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. I remember when this game was about to release, they launched a demo and were allowing people to basically play, I think, an hour or so of the game. and it allowed you to play quite a bit of the beginning of the game. At that point in time, I was not a fan of the Dragon Quest series, but since then, I've learned to absolutely love it, and I now own every Dragon Quest game. The first Dragon Quest game that I played was Dragon Quest VIII on the 3DS. I picked up a copy from Book Off for about $110, and those games now are super expensive. I love this game because graphically, well, it's the most advanced. It looks fantastic. You can take it on the go. It has an amazing story, a massive map. I also like that it allows you to ride on a horse, and you can preemptively strike your opponents. So it's like before you go into battle, if you tap the attack button just before, it allows you an attack bonus upon combat. So there's a few things that actually sell this game for me. Another one of the things is my favorite character is Sylvando.
I said wake up! Morning, darling!
He's a very eccentric and upbeat character, high energy. He is a very good fighter, and the story is impressive. I think it's got 80 plus hours worth of content, and usually, anybody who's played Dragon Quest games knows that they're usually on the longer side. It does have the ability to play in 2D mode on the Nintendo Switch. And there's also a way to change the soundtrack within the game as well. So you have like a symphonic style version of the soundtrack, and then there's some other version as well. But ultimately, I love the game. I love the Dragon Quest series. It's the most recent release. I know that they're going to be releasing a Dragon Quest 12 here in the next couple years as well, and a HD 2D remaster of 1, 2, and 3. If you're a Dragon Quest fan and you have not yet played Dragon Quest 11, which would be hard to believe at this point, but if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. This is number 3 on my list. Next up is number 2, and before we get into it, I want to say that number 2 and number 1 are so closely tied. I had a really tough time deciding which one would actually be 1 and 2, but I had to make a decision, so with that being said, we're going to jump into it. Number 2 is the game Eastward, and initially I picked this game up digitally on day 1, and Eastward, if I could relate it to any games, it closely resembles Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and Earthbound. If you're a fan of either of those games, you're going to love Eastward. Basically, there are 2 characters in this game. Sam, who's a little girl, also known as Mother, and then John, who's a miner in a small town. And it's basically a post-apocalyptic game. Humans take refuge underground, and they're surviving down there. John is a miner. He eventually breaks through and finds a capsule with a little girl in it, Sam. He decides to break her free and raise her as his own. And as the game progresses, you eventually make your way above ground, and you see an entire world full of color and life, and you're being chased by a dark smog called the miasma throughout the entire game. And I'll tell you what, the story is so heartfelt. I love every aspect of the story. You meet so many different characters, you fall in love with most of them, and unfortunately a lot of them get killed off, but You're traveling to different towns, different cities, you're meeting other people. It's a combat hack and slash style game, and there's no stamina bar, so thank God for that. You can swing your frying pan as fast as you want. The bosses are awesome. They're not too difficult. It does take a little bit of critical thinking when you have to play between Sam and John. It's one of those games where you have to swap characters at points and use each other's different attributes in order to advance through the game. The soundtrack is so damn good that I had to buy the collector's edition of the game. Inside this box is a 2-disc soundtrack, and it comes with 72 songs included. Also a clay figure of Sam, and a physical edition of the game. This is the Japanese collector's edition. I don't think that they've actually released a physical US edition of the game. This game is literally one of the few 10 out of 10s that I would give for a Nintendo Switch title. So this is number 2, and number 1, we finally made it, folks. Number 1 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'm going to go over my history with the Legend of Zelda series. So, one of the first Legend of Zelda games that I ever played was The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I played this in, I think it was maybe middle school or 5th grade or maybe middle school, somewhere in there. And my friend actually picked up the game first. I got a little sneak preview of the game playing it at his house, and I decided I had to get it. So I picked this game up, and I remember loving it so much. I started dreaming about this game. I remember liking it so much that I wanted to live in Hyrule. I would trade my friends for NPCs if I had to. Like, this game was my favorite game, hands down. I remember getting stuck on the water temple. I think most people did have trouble with the water temple. That thing was a pain in the ass. And so my buddy, my neighbor, actually gave me his Nintendo Power strategy guide for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This is not that exact one. I lost mine over the years, but I was able to find another one reasonably priced at our local swap meet. And I used to take this thing to school with me, and I would pore over it whenever I had downtime. Whenever the teachers were talking, I would open this thing up and I would draw all the people inside of it, all the characters, Link pulling the Master Sword, all the different bosses. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that artwork anymore, but I loved drawing Legend of Zelda characters from Ocarina of Time. My second favorite game from the Legend of Zelda series was Majora's Mask. My mom got that for me for Valentine's Day, I believe, and I think she actually let me stay home from school that day, which was unheard of. But yeah, I was able to stay home and play Majora's Mask all day. And I remember that was a game I used to take to my friend's house all the time, and we would pass the controller back and forth because it was strangely, it was very difficult. Majora's Mask used the same assets as Ocarina of Time, but there was a time travel feature where you had only 3 days to complete the game, and if you didn't, the moon would crash into the earth and it would destroy Termina and everybody in it. So you would get to the point by day 3, you'd have to rewind time, you'd lose all your bombs, your arrows, your rupees, and you'd have to start back at day 1. So very challenging game, but I also loved that one as well. So with that being said, fast forward to Breath of the Wild releasing alongside of the Nintendo Switch. That was a match made in heaven. I was able to not only play on a brand new console, but play a brand new Zelda game with a massive open world aspect to it. I remember when I came out of the chamber, the Resurrection Chamber, and I got a look at just how big Hyrule was. I had to take a step back, and I almost was thinking to myself, I don't think I can do this. From getting lasered to death by guardians and starting out with no armor and these rusty weapons that would break, it was almost too much for me. But I took my time and learned how to sneak and avoid the guardians. You know, you start to unravel different parts of the maps, the towers rise up out of the ground, and you know the story starts to unfold. The lore behind Breath of the Wild is incredible. The story is very powerful. It's full of emotions from highs to lows. And I love the fact that you can explore Hyrule, every nook and cranny. I mean, it is a massive map, and there's all these different villages and different people to interact with and ways to upgrade your character. I think this is one of the first times I would consider Zelda a RPG style game. I have since owning this game, I've bought the collector's edition of the soundtrack. Love it. Downloaded it onto my phone as well and listen to it when I work. I own every strategy guide available for this game. I've collected the amiibos and just about anything Breath of the Wild I can get my hands on. It is literally my favorite game. It is a 10 out of 10. If you have not played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, or if you've not completed the game, I would highly recommend sinking some time into it and getting it completed, because I think if anybody would have a hard time at this point denying that Legend of Zelda is a fantastic game. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in today, and for all of you who watched my first episode as well, going over my PlayStation memories, please comment down below your list of top 10 Nintendo Switch games, as well as maybe some of your Nintendo Switch memories, the day you got your first Nintendo Switch, what you think of Nintendo up to date, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the episode. Please remember to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content to come in the near future. Thanks again for watching. Take care, and aloha.